Jungle.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I am late today. I know, I'm sorry. For those who don't listen live, I'm sure you don't care, but for those who do tune in at 1 o'clock every Saturday, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. I was actually watching the new Pinocchio movie on Netflix, which is what I'm going to be talking about today, and I lost track of time. So the movie's about 2 hours, so it runs a little long, but I really got off into it surprisingly. And before I knew it, I looked up in the clock, read that it was almost 1 o'clock. So apologies for starting late, but I'm not gonna do too much of an intro. I just want to get right into the movie. So Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I feel like I probably butchered his name, so I'm sorry, sir, if you're watching this or if you hear this. Is a new movie that just released on Netflix, I believe yesterday. And I kind of been hearing about it a little bit anyway, that was going to be one of the new releases for Netflix this month. And I really wasn't planning on watching it at first, but I kind of was like, when was the last time I watched like a Pinocchio film? I feel like the only Pinocchio film I really watched was the Disney version, which I believe was from like the 40s, the 1940s. And I think most of us like probably grew up and watched that version of it because it's a Disney classic. But I know there's been plenty of other versions that have came out. I think there was a more recent one that came out on Disney Plus, but I have not seen that. So I was kind of interested to see what this version of Pinocchio was going to be since it was on Netflix. And obviously, we know that Netflix is Netflix. They typically put out really good content. And they had been kind of marketing it for a while. I feel like I've been hearing about this for like months. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of interested in seeing it. And now it's funny because now that I have a podcast, when I hear about new movies or new TV shows that I thinking about watching or getting into, I'm like, you know what, this could be good for the podcast. Like that's always in the back of my mind now, where I'm like, this is kind of something I think I could talk about. So I kind of did it for that. Like I was interested to see what was going to happen in the movie compared to the Disney version. But then I was also thinking like this could be a good topic to discuss on my podcast. So here we go. This is what I'm talking about. And I will say that I actually really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. Not that I didn't think I wouldn't like it because, like I said, the Disney version of it was good, and I just haven't seen it in a long time. So I didn't really remember. I think most of us know that Pinocchio is a story of a wooden boy who, when he lies, his nose grows and it keeps growing the more he lies. And I feel like that's kind of the main thing that we know from Pinocchio, or I feel like that's what I remembered from it. I didn't really remember much of a backstory or how he came to be and all that kind of stuff. So this version of it is sort of a reimagining. It's definitely not following the Disney version, or I guess probably any of the other versions that have come out in recent years. So this one's different, and I recommend I was gonna say going to see it. It might be in some limited theaters actually, but it's on Netflix, so just watch it from home. But yeah, I recommend watching it. It's actually pretty good. I would say that I would say it's a movie for everyone because it is stop motion animated and it's sort of a musical. This music, the singing in the movie. So of course I would say like yes, kids can watch it. I feel like it's like a family movie, but there's actually some pretty heavy themes in this movie that I wasn't anticipating, and I feel like that actually made it more enjoyable to watch, and it kind of made me a little bit more emotionally invested as opposed to just watching about this wooden boy lying and his nose growing. There's a lot more to the story in this one than that, and that's what really drew me in, I would say. And then I was also intrigued because I heard that Finn Wolfhard was a part of it. And I was kind of wondering what character he was going to play. I figured he wasn't going to be the voice of Pinocchio because Pinocchio is like supposed to be kind of, depicting as a little boy. And obviously, like Finn, yeah, that would be weird for him to be voicing like a little child. Like, I mean, he did voice a little child, but I don't think his voice would fit for Pinocchio, if that makes sense. But he ended up voicing one of the characters. It was a young kid though. His name is Candlewick, which I thought was kind of weird. I don't know if a lot of this is from the original, not the Disney version, but the I don't know if a lot of it was adapted from the original novel, which came out in like 1883 from Carlo. God, I feel like I'm going to butcher his last name. You guys can look it up. I don't want to butcher his name. But he was like the original person who created the story of Pinocchio. I think it's called The Adventures of Pinocchio. And as you guys know, a lot of Disney movies and fairy tales and things like that, a lot of that originates from novels. So it's actually pretty interesting when you hear like the real stories. A lot of the real stories are much darker. And so I feel like that's kind of what the director was leaning into with this one. And that's why I said, yes, I think kids can watch it, but there's a lot of heavy themes, things that maybe like young kids probably wouldn't fully understand. But as an adult watching it, I was like, oh, this is actually really good. Like, and I'm upset to say this, but actually kind of it made me tear up at the end for real. And I was like, why am I crying watching this movie? Why am I crying watching Pinocchio? It's kind of embarrassing, but it was good though, you know. Um, and I think a big part of it too was like a lot of the movies that I feel like I've been engaging in lately have been dealing with themes of loss and grief. And that kind of hits close to home for me because I've experienced that quite a bit this year. And then, I went to go see Black Panther, and that, was dealing with grief, obviously. And so, I don't know why. I'm not purposely watching these movies that have to deal with that, but yeah, I feel like that is too why maybe it made me feel emotional, but also just like I'm just that person when I watch movies, and it's like if you feel connected to a character or you're just like rooting for the good guy, and then somebody dies or something like that, you're just like, I'm sad now, like why would you do this to the character? But um but yeah, so what I thought was really interesting too about it, um referencing back to what I said about it being a little bit darker, was that there was a lot of like political, I don't know if I'd call it political allegory. It's not really like hidden underneath. It's pretty plain inside if you watch the movie. It is set in, I believe, like early 1900s Italy. It might be more so like closer to like 1920 or 1930s because they talk about Mussolini, and there's actually an animated character as Mussolini in the movie, which I thought was funny, the way they kind of like depicted him and everything. Um, and Obviously, if you learned about history in school, you know that that was like a fascist, um, I guess you can call, like, he controlled, I don't even know how to explain it, but you guys know, you've heard of the name Mussolini, you know that he was a dictator basically. And so he's like, his character is like in the movie, and then a lot of that is a reference because Candlewick, who is voiced by Finn Wolfhard, his father is like a fascist official, I think, and he's like a big part of the war that's going on. So I think it's World War I, if I'm not mistaken, that's going on. And his father is very much the type to be like, it is a great honor to die for your country, and you should go to war and fight for your people, and all this stuff. Like, his father is very much like that type, and you can tell Candlewick is not that. Like, he wants to be that for his father, and he wants to make him proud, but it's like he's a kid. I don't know if they ever explicitly state how old he is, but he's definitely young, and his father puts a lot on him. And so I kind of felt for his character. Like, at first he seemed like he was kind of like a little punk at first, but then I was like, no, I think he's just really struggling because he's trying to live up to his dad's expectation, and that's not really what he wants to do. And that definitely plays out later in the movie, but I guess I won't say what happens just because I don't want to give it away. And um, in case you're planning on watching it, I try not to spoil too much of it, but just to go back to the beginning, I guess. So the way Pinocchio comes to be is a really sad origin. Again, like, these things are making me like emotional. I'm just like, this is really sad, dude. Like, why would you do this? Um, so the dad, what is his name? Let me get his name right. I think I wrote it down. Geppetto. Let me get his name right. So Geppetto has a son named Carlo. I don't know if it's Carlo or Carlos, but he has a young child that he's really close with, and that's pretty much who he has in this world. I guess the mom died or the mom left, so it's really just the father and the son. And his son gets obliterated pretty much, because like I said, this is during a time of war, so there's like bombs and stuff going on, and I don't think that they were, I think it says in the movie that he wasn't intentionally killed, like he wasn't the target, he just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So they were actually at the church, and his dad is like creating this like mantle thing, and his son is helping him, and then like you hear the planes going off, and they were leaving to get out of there, and his son went back for like a pine cone, and god, and that bomb dropped and he was gone just like that, and it was really sad too. And I know that this is like animated and all this kind of, but it's still sad. And it pretty much just tells, it starts off basically just saying like how, the rest of the world moved on, but his dad, he didn't, because that was his whole world. So without his son, he was clearly depressed and guilt ridden, and just like he just kind of like gave up, and just was praying to God of like, bring my son back, or, it's just really sad. And I think there was a line that says, where the dad is like, he's drunk because he's drinking and everything like that, and he's crying out, he's in front of his son's grave, and he's just like, why are you not listening to my prayers, or why are you not granting my prayers? Like, I'm asking you to bring my son back, like I need my son. And a guardian hears that, and so this sort of like, I guess you could sort of say there's like supernatural elements to the. I mean, it is a fantasy film, but this, it deals with like guardians and afterlife and death and everything. So, like I said, there's some like pretty like adult themes in this movie, and a guardian comes, and he's like knocked out drunk at this point, but he basically makes Pinocchio, and he's just like, like, if you're not going to bring my son back, I'll make him. Then I'll make him, I'll do it myself. And he makes Pinocchio, and he like passes out, and then this guardian comes and pretty much brings him to life, and her intention is good, to make Geppetto happy again, and to so that he's not lonely, so that he has somebody there with him. But of course that brings on like a whole onset of like other consequences and stuff. And so the other character I really liked in the movie was Jiminy Cricket, but they don't call him Jiminy Cricket in this version. They call him Sebastian, which I thought was kind of funny, kind of cute. I think he signs his name as like Sebastian J. Cricket or something like that. I'm like, oh, Jiminy Cricket, because at first I was like, Sebastian. I'm like, that's not his name. What? I was like, what are you doing? Changing names and everything? But it might be a trademark thing. It's probably because Disney came up with that, so I don't think they would be able to do that for this movie. Um but yeah, he's like, kind of like, I guess you could say a little sidekick of Pinocchio's, but he's also sort of like, it's kind of like bestowed upon him to be his, I guess, guardian, or to kind of like look out for him, and to kind of teach him how to be good, how to be like a good boy and everything. And it really starts out with like him trying to be Carlos, because he thinks that's what Geppetto wants, which is what he does want, or what he thinks he wants in the beginning, because he's still like, full of grief and everything. And he's just like, why can't you be like my son? Like, why can't you be a good boy? My son would do this and do that, and you're the complete opposite of that. And I mean, that speaks to like, that you could definitely apply that to real life, where, somebody is trying to be, somebody's trying to be something that they're not, to like make somebody else happy. And a lot of times when that happens in real life, it doesn't, it doesn't service anybody. And so, that was a pretty good theme, I think, to explore in this movie. And I'm sure you can guess, I don't really feel like this is a spoiler, but at the end, he realizes that, like, my son is gone, but I have you here, and I don't need you to try to be Carlos, or, anybody else. I just want you to be Pinocchio, whatever that is to you. And it's just really sweet and like heartfelt and everything. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, actually. So I would recommend going to, I was gonna say going to watch it, going to Netflix and streaming it, and let me know what you think about it. Do you think it's better than the Disney version, or any other versions that you've seen? This is like this. I think this one and the Disney one is the only one I've ever seen. I haven't seen any other Pinocchio movie, so I can't really compare it to anything else. And I've definitely never read the original novel, so I have no idea how dark or, what the exact storyline is in the novel, but it seems like it's probably pulling maybe a little bit more from that with this one. And then, I think they're just taking liberties, trying to give it a twist so that you're not retelling the same exact story. And it's sort of, I think it could sort of introduce the character of Pinocchio to like a newer generation, but also it's something that I think adults can enjoy as well, because like I said, it's much more than about Pinocchio trying to be a real boy. Like there's a lot of other things that happen in the movie, and I think that everybody that was a part of it, I think they did a really good job. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, and going back, like I said, to the themes of like grief and loss and mortality. There's moments where Pinocchio dies like multiple times, and he's brought back because he's not like a real boy, he's made out of wood. And then um when he dies, he gets sent to like this place, and it's like full of, like, I think there are rabbits or something. And then he's talking to one of the other guardians, not the one that made him come to life in the beginning, but like the sister. I don't know if they say her name, maybe I missed it, but she's much more like, you have to abide by the rules. If you don't, there's consequences. Like, each time that you die, you're gonna come here with me, and until time runs out, and then I'll send you back. But like, it's like you can go back, but you're gonna be here with me the more you die and everything. So it's just like all these different things that come with it. It's like, even though he's not human, and even though he can be brought back to life, there's still, I guess, like, laws of nature that he has to abide by. And so it's, I don't know, it's just really, it was a really good movie, really good story, very interesting, the take that they had on it. And yeah, like I said, let me know like what you guys think, or if you plan on watching it, or if you've seen it, because it literally just came out, I think, yesterday. So I don't know if a lot of people have seen it yet, or if you're planning on seeing it. I haven't really gone on to watch, not to watch, but to read reviews about it yet. Sometimes I'll go on like Collider or like Screen Rant or one of those other like movie websites, just to see like what's written about it. But I haven't really seen that yet, so maybe I'll go and check that out and see if it's gonna get good reviews or not. Because I felt like it's pretty good, but that's just me. But yeah, before I jump into the next subject, I did want to remind you guys that my podcast is sponsored by Streann Media. And the way I'm able to go live every week is through the Streann Studio. Um, so if you want to check it out for yourself, you can just go to studio.streann.com. Is Streann is spelled with two N's. And all you really need is your email. They give you a login code and then you're in. So it's pretty simple and easy to use. I mean, I use it. I've been using it for months now, and I actually really enjoy it and I like it. That's why I still do the podcast. And thank you to them for allowing me to have this platform to do podcasts, even though I'm definitely not a professional. But you really don't need to be a professional. And it doesn't even have to be a podcast. If you want to do just regular live streaming, if you want to do gaming, if you want to talk about other subjects, it's really up to you. It's just the platform is there for anybody to use because it is free. And I highly recommend checking it out if you are a content creator, or if you're looking into getting into live streaming, or just, wanting to make videos or anything like that. This is definitely a good platform to start off with and to use. But anyway, um, so just kind of jumping off of the whole Pinocchio thing, and like I said, that Finn Wolfhard is a part of the cast. It kind of made me interested in where his career is going. And I don't like heavily follow his career or anything. Like, obviously, I think most people know him from Stranger Things. And then I think a lot of people too also remember him as Richie Tozier in the first It movie that came out in 2017, which I'm pretty sure he started Stranger Things first and then he was in It, because I feel like people were like, "Oh, that's the kid from Stranger Things," when they saw him in the movie. So, but I think he kind of did that back to back. I think it was like 2016 Stranger Things dropped, and then the following year It came out. So he kind of like blew up around that time. And as you guys know, Stranger Things is coming to an end pretty soon. I think they're starting to film the last season from what I've read, I think it's like next spring or something like that. So I'm assuming we'll get some type of like teaser trailer or something, some type of like pictures to come out next year as they're filming, and we'll kind of maybe see like what direction they're heading in. I don't know, because like I said, it's going to be the last season, so I think they're going to end it with the bang, and I'm pretty sure somebody else is going to die, and I'm really scared. I'm really not ready for that, but we'll see what happens. So I guess it was kind of making me think about, like, after the show ends, I wonder what he's going to lead into. If he's going to kind of start to do more movies, if he's going to end up in another TV show, like another Netflix show, because clearly, he has, I'm pretty sure everybody that's a part of Stranger Things probably has some type of contract, long term contract or deal with Netflix where they're able to kind of do like movies and other TV shows with them. You see Millie Bobby Brown, she's done the Enola Holmes movies, and those seem to be successful. So with him, I guess I'm kind of interested with him because I know that he was kind of like the breakout star, I feel like, from, well, maybe I shouldn't use that word because not that's not to like shade any of the other cast, because I think everybody's talented that's a part of that movie, but I mean, not the movie, but that's a part of the show. But I feel like he has been talked about probably the most out of that cast, but probably between him and Millie Bobby Brown. But I feel like everybody was really harping about him and his portrayal of Mike, and then obviously his portrayal of Richie. And he's gone on to do other movies. I haven't seen like his whole discography or anything. I've seen him in other stuff, and I thought it was decent. There's also a new movie that he's going to be in. I think that's premiering in January. It's going to be in theaters called, I think it's When You're Done Saving the World or something like that. I could be wrong, but it is a movie directed and written by Jesse Eisenberg, which I thought was pretty interesting. And I think it's his like, directorial debut. And Julianne Moore is going to be in the movie, which I'm like, that's pretty good. Like, this is your first movie and you're getting Julianne Moore, because she's a good actress. If you know, you know. And who else is in the movie? I think Alicia Bowe or Alicia Bowie. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, but she was in 13 Reasons Why. If you guys remember that show, do you remember how controversial that show was? I watched the whole series, by the way. I know a lot of people were like, after the first season, they're like, why should the show keep continuing on? Like, the girl is dead. Why do you need to keep making more episodes? But I actually really enjoyed the show. But she played Jessica in that show. And so she's in the movie. And I believe she's Finn Wolfhard's like crush in the movie. Um, and there is an audiobook, I think, that's out about the story. I'm assuming the audiobook was put out first and then he filmed the movie. But I'm kind of interested to see that. I think that could be interesting as well. It seems like it's definitely a sort of like a parent versus their teenage, child type of movie, where you're seeing a lot of like the generational differences and how they deal with that or how they don't deal with it. And it's definitely like a coming of age story, and I usually like coming of age stories, so I'm kind of interested to see that as well, and to see what Finn Wolfhard's character is like. And yeah, so it seems like he's going to be kind of, I think, leaning more into movies, probably more so after Stranger Things and probably as he gets older. But I'm kind of interested to see, and I feel like I'll kind of watch to see the type of projects and the characters that he plays, because I think he's talented, and it seems like too that he wants to get into directing and producing, which I feel like that happens with a lot of actors. And it's funny because I think that kind of correlates with like Bill Hader's career a little bit. I know that's like kind of random to say that, and it's not just because they both played Richie, but it's because they both, I feel like have a pretty decent like acting career, and they both been in like hit shows. So Bill was in SNL, and then Finn with Stranger Things. Although Bill is like a comedian, so that's pretty different from Finn. But now we're seeing Bill doing Barry, and once that's over, I honestly think that once that's over, we're not going to see him in front of the screen that much. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, because y'all know how much I love Bill, and I think he's super talented. But I think that he's going to be like directing and writing for sure, more so in the future. So, and I could see that happening with Finn along the way. But he's still really young, so I feel like we'll probably see him. I feel like he'll be one of those young stars that we'll be seeing in movies like 10, 15 years from now. And like I said, that's not to say that the rest of the Stranger cast won't go on to do good things, but I just feel like him specifically, I could see him doing that. And I think Sadie Sink too. She's like underrated, I think. And I if you've seen season 4 of Stranger Things, then you'll know that she did that. Like she played Max really, really well this past season. So but yeah, I just kind of thought I wanted to mention that since he was in this Pinocchio, or since he voiced one of the characters in the Pinocchio film. Um, and then he has this other movie, like I said, coming out in January, and then I'm not sure like what else he's doing. But the other thing that's really funny too with him is like there's like this running joke on the internet about how Finn can never play a straight character. And again, I kind of feel like that goes with like Bill a little bit. Although I've seen people say that like they think Finn is trying to copy Timothy Chalamet, or like he's trying to have his career, which is dumb if you ask me, because I'm pretty sure Finn was on the scene before Timothy Chalamet. Like I'm not really familiar with Timothy Chalamet's work. I think the only thing I really seen him in was Call Me by Your Name, which is kind of from what I remember, that's kind of how he blew up, kind of how his name got out there. But I think that was like 2017. So again, Stranger Things was already out. And I'm just kind of like, how is he copying him when he was out first? But anyway, I think that, like, I don't know. I think Finn and Bill's careers are kind of similar in that way. Again, I know Bill is more of a comedian and everything, so that's different. But I think that um, they've both been in hit shows, and you've seen them in these sometimes they're kind of like weird or like random like movies, or they're like very niche or very indie. And then now, like I said, Bill is kind of transitioning more into being a director and being more behind the scenes, and I think that will happen with Finn. That's kind of like my prediction, I'll say. So but yeah, I would definitely like compare his career to, and I know he's obviously like a fan of Bill because he wanted Bill to play Richie in It Chapter Two, so I could see him like mirroring his career a little bit, and I think that would be interesting to see. Um, and yeah, I think I'm going to wrap up this episode. I don't want to blab too much. You guys know how I get when I'm really into something. But yeah, I really just wanted to talk about the Pinocchio film for the most part because I thought it was really good. And if you're like me, you probably seen it and was just kind of like, you know, maybe not that interested in it, or kind of was just like, okay, another Pinocchio film. But it's actually really good. So again, I do recommend it. Let me know what you guys think of the film. You could hit me up on Twitter, on Instagram, here on Facebook. Um, really anywhere that you can leave a comment. I appreciate seeing comments under my Facebook, since this is where I go live. But of course you can leave comments on my YouTube page, and like I said, I'm usually on Twitter. As far as like fandom related things, you'll see me talking about movies and music and things like that on there. So if you want to catch me fangirling, it's most likely going to be on Twitter. And I believe I mentioned this before, but I am trying to work on creating separate pages for the podcast, so that way my personal stuff doesn't get mixed in with anything having to do with the podcast. You guys let me know what you think about that. If you would be willing to follow like a separate Twitter, a separate Instagram, a separate Facebook page. I'll probably just keep the same YouTube page, that I have. I've had that for like years and years. But just, just like I said, just to kind of keep things separate, and then maybe even like creating an email for the podcast. So that way, if you guys have feedback for me, if you have questions, or suggestions or things like that, then there'll be a specific email that you guys can send to instead of me giving out my personal one. I just feel like that would be a little bit better. And then just for those who maybe aren't really on social media like that and you kind of want to reach me, I think email would be the best, probably the next best thing. So let me know what you guys think about that. And of course, if I do go through with it and I create the pages, I will link them in the comments, or at least put the username so you guys can follow and everything. Um, and yeah, and I think probably with my probably with my Spotify account, I think I might leave it as is. I don't know if I'll try to recreate another like another separate page. I'll probably just leave it as is. I don't know. But I think mainly with the socials is what I'm thinking. I think that would make more sense because I see a lot of other like podcasters do that and a lot of other people who specifically have like some type of content creation, they keep it separate from their personals. And I just feel like that makes sense. I probably should have done that from the very beginning when I first started, but I was kind of like in a different situation job wise and everything. So I didn't do it. But now I'm thinking, the further I go along with this podcast, and I'm hoping to continue to do it for a while, definitely throughout the rest of the year and going into next year. So if I'm thinking long term, I feel like I should definitely make a page. Um, so yeah, I think I will do that, but it might take me some time to work on each page and everything. So, like I said, when I do, I'll let you guys know, and I'm expecting y'all to follow. Y'all better follow. Y'all better follow, and y'all better interact with me because that makes it more fun for me. I like to see people commenting and everything, and like I said, giving me suggestions or letting me know if you want to be on the podcast. You could be on the podcast. I am allowed to have guests, you guys, more than one guest. So if you want to make it like a group thing where we're chatting about something, let me know and we could get it together. Like, and I think it'll be easier too because I do the podcast on Saturdays now instead of Tuesdays. So that way, I think more people are free on the weekend. So if you want to be on, just let me know. Or if you have a subject or a topic in mind, again, let me know. I'm thinking that for next week, I might still be talking about movies. I know that my podcast is Tiffany's TVscape, because I do, for the most part, I think I've always like preferred TV over movies, but lately I've just been like watching movies. I don't know why. So you might see me talking about films a little bit more moving forward. I don't really have a TV show that I'm like super into right now. I think that's probably why. Of course, when Barry comes back, I'm going to be on that. When Stranger Things comes back, I'll be on that. And if there's a new show that comes out that I get off into, I'll definitely talk about it. When the new season of Bridgerton comes out, I'll be on that. But I feel like that stuff probably won't be out till like next year or something. So, um, in the meantime, I might just be mainly talking about films. Hopefully that's okay with you guys. Or I might even just be talking about what's going on within TV and film. So giving you guys kind of like updates and news and things that I've heard. If you guys wouldn't mind that, I could kind of do that as well sometimes. Maybe like at least once a month or something, just giving kind of like an update or something about what's going on in entertainment. Just to kind of switch it up so I'm not doing the same thing over and over. But yeah, like I said, I feel like I've been rambling a little bit too much. So I am going to cut the podcast episode for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you are not following me on Spotify or YouTube or Facebook, please do. I appreciate any support or comments, feedback that you guys give me. And of course, I will see you guys next Saturday. And one last time, let me know if you watched the Pinocchio movie and what you think about it. It is on Netflix, so I feel like, a lot of you guys have Netflix, so it is accessible for you to watch it. It's also in some, I think it might be in some theaters, but obviously it would be easier to just stream it. So let me know what you think. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next week. Bye bye.